on women's achievement and working to combat violence against women and children. And to all of us here today who are raising women's visibility by being alive and writing. To be optimistic is to reach for what is possible in difficult times, said Tolstoy, as one candle kindles another, thousands are lighted. I'll read a couple of poems then from my book, L-Shaped Room. A beak wept. A beak wept on the tree. It had the story of women and sunshine to tell, folding itself inside a branch or baton. There was nothing to admire, but it sang anyway. Behind each beak is a coat waiting to be uncloseted, and behind each woman a doll waiting to be cleared by security and released to fly in the face of convention. Armed with trees and weeping, a coat sings to its beak and sends out a song of the branches. Can you stop to weep, it says to the sunshine, and sheds tears as it falls into nothing. A lost beak unfolds its beaks and branches, then it laughs, and from inside the tree out hops a woman and becomes the poem. Okay. The second is called, You Are Always on the Verge of Becoming What Never Arrives. I doubt you will like what I have to say. I doubt that you will understand what I have to say either. Do you know who you are? Do you want to swallow my kisses? Life happens for a moment, then you're lost in the subtitles. Under the veil of wordiness is a tiny gem like I will conquer fear when I find my mother. Shake my hand and share my doubts. Adroit hour. How truly afraid you are to love me. And the last poem is dedicated to all mothers of one kind or another, including my own. Mother is the most wanted picture. Mother is the most wanted picture in the post office. Somebody always finds her fingerprint somewhere and says, you're it. Everyone wants to borrow her for one night's dinner. A good meal at a blue plate diner, that's the courtship. After the marriage, we provide her with gas, oil, water, and electricity. All the responsibilities we've declined. She's easy. Her qualifications were set forth from birth. For her, there's no possibility of retirement. She watches us take all our young and foolish steps. She has the right disposition for that sort of thing. She watches us go everywhere, having gone nowhere. In her sleep, she raises her arms above her head. It looks as if she is flying for herself. Thank you. And the next poet is wonderful Amy Barone. Amy Barone's latest poetry collection is We Became Summer from New York Quarterly Books and was released in 2018. She wrote chapbooks Kamikaze Dance, published by Finishing Line Press, and Views from the Driveway, Foothills Publishing. And she is also a member of the Poetry Society of America. Amy Barone.
Amy, you have to unmute.
Can we unmute each person as they're about to read?
Okay.
We can also unmute ourselves.
I can ask to unmute.
Okay. Again, thank you, Dorothy and Bertha, for organizing this Dynamo reading. Ensnared. She returned to the place where she first experienced longing and surrender, where past loves had been tangible as mercury, elusive as ghosts. By day, butterflies clung to spikes of blue veronica. Crimson azaleas filled in bright green bushes. At night, dazed and glowing with a moon tan, she caught the soul pulsing star, then tossed away her shillelagh, vowed to engineer life's voles on her own terms. Defying extinction. The ribbon will be massive, proof that no lady died in vain. I add a piece of sky blue fabric from bedding my late mother sent me as a housewarming gift. Others brought cherished family linens, baby clothes, and delicate doilies. A writer weaved in a purple silk blouse to create a memorial that will hang along the Brown building in Lower Manhattan, where 146 garment workers at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory perished in a fire on March 25th, 1911. One of the nation's worst work disasters. We honor mothers, wives, sisters, daughters, and friends, plus 17 men who worked with their hands, mostly immigrants in a new land. Escape blocked by locked exits and stairwells. Their sacrifice propelled activism, dignity for workers, remembering. Queen of Tone. Abigail Ibarra didn't live 9 lives. She stopped at 1. Her job spanned over 50 years at Fender Guitars, where small, nimble hands of a Latino teen made waves. A pickup winder, she advanced from work and soldering and lit a path for other young women who found joy in a unique job. Striving for brilliance, her electric guitars mesmerized legions of fans and radicalized the sound of rock music. She drew demand from Jimi Hendrix, Joan Jett, Eric Clapton, who relied on her handcrafted pickups for their edgy sound. A legacy with measure. They say she wound guitar wire that would have circled the world 16 times. Wizardess. It's all in the timing. You have to keep the game in play as long as possible. Gauge your investments. Coin gets eaten fast. Most times, what you see is what you get, unless you're hiding under a glass dome like I used to do. I'd let them tilt me too low, bump me too hard. Then I learned to trap them, became an expert at manipulating steel balls, holding them in place, using my brain, not my hips. So they would nudge harder and get locked out. I scored my way into multiple replays, balls piled up in the drain. I never limited myself to themes as I liked most music. Now I'm relaxing, resting my sharpened flippers, anticipating my next visit to the arcade. And I'm going to end with survivors, and thank you all who have come out. Cowhounds reemerged on Bermuda's Nonsuch Island after a 300-year absence. They thrive amid native flora, wildlife, and limited access to man. Tangier Island in the middle of Chesapeake Bay supplies the world with soft-shell crab, where water defines life, where home and country matter. The piping plover, hailed one day each summer for its resurgence in the Rockaways, New York, lives protected in camouflage nests on the beach. Shadowboxing Arctic hares, clinging jellyfish, bone beds in Badlands on Fossil Freeway in South Dakota. Me, I'm the woman with medicine in her voice, a forest bather, mating like a corpse plant melding into time, floating toward a 12th life, like a trumpeter swan. Thank you. I'm now going to introduce the illustrious Patricia Carragon. Patricia Carragon's latest books from Poets Wear Prada are Meowcoo and the Cupcake Chronicles. Her debut novel, Angel Fire, is from Alien Buddha Press. Patricia hosts the Brooklyn-based Brownstone Poets and is the editor-in-chief of its annual anthology.
Thank you, Amy. It's Patricia Carragon. People always mispronounce my name. Thank you so much, Dorothy and Bertha, for inviting me to read with these great women here. I'm going to start with Besame Mucho. Inside my head, the bandoneon played Besame Mucho. Her hair, raven black. His hair, mocha brown. Behind the frame's glass, their tango froze. As I lifted it, panic held my hands. Her fear became mine. His powerful hold refused to let go. His head touched mine. Cool glass pressed against my lips. Her scream became mine. His powerful hold refused to let go. The bandoneon, too loud to hear. The Ballad of Lucy Jordan, inspired by Marianne Faithfull. Years ago, she walked through Paris with the wind rustling through her hair. As she crossed the Champs-Élysées, she never knew why men in sports cars whistled. It took years to learn that testosterone didn't care about her looks or intelligence. Now past the age of 37, she realized that the nature of men deceives and humiliates. The big bad wolf took Red Riding Hood out to dinner, demanded payment in return. She couldn't forget how the King of Hearts knocked down her house of cards, leaving the Ace of Hearts crying in the rubble. On a humid Brooklyn night, she planned to take her life, but she couldn't tolerate his sinister laughter beating inside her head. She pushed his memory off the roof instead. As sirens passed by, the Ace of Hearts stopped crying. His last text, unread and deleted. Ruby, my dear. Ruby believed that the past lived in air particles, that walls were witnesses, a black and white movie invisible to all except her. Ghosts of former residents, daily battles in loveless marriages and family disputes, fruitless dreams of the Irish sweepstakes, breadwinners' salaries to pay, bookies and barkeepers' rents. From the collapsed kitchen ceiling, a leak's a cappella rhythm banged inside a plastic pail. The voice of angry water sang about accumulated neglect. Ruby's mama restrained her tears, a victim of systemic neglect. No family to fall back on, and her foster parents never cared. Her husband disappeared, left her to deal with life on her own. She had to be strong, had a daughter to raise, worked 2 jobs, long hours, menial pay, sacrificed her daughter's needs, not enough to feed her landlord's greed. Government assistance had holes in its pockets, and she considered herself lucky to be eligible. She immersed herself in jazz CDs instead of crack. Monk would take the coal train, Grice would ride his sax and more. Jazz from an earlier time named her daughter Ruby to honor Monk. Ruby studied her mama's expression, found strength in her eyes. She immersed herself into air particles, listened to the leak become jazz, let crayons recite her stories, inside a thick spiral notebook. 2 more. Caution, inspired by the killers. Birthday wishes died at midnight when Cinderella ditched her prince. Her black top beginning saw tarot swords march in 3s, 8s, 9s, and 10s. By cathedral doors, cautionary tales took root. By the promenade, a song rallied for change. Under mandatory incognito, she fought for her sanity through caution west of the bay. As seagulls flew around her, she raised her arms to the sun, lips in affirmation, found freedom when the mask behind her mask lost its grip, fell to the rocks below. My last haiku, I'm gonna repeat it twice. My body belongs to me, not to God or man. My body belongs to me, not to God or man. Thank you. And next on this list, we have Elizabeth Cohen, who's not Kate Moses.
I'm not, but I'm living in the house of Kate Moses.
It's okay, this is a joke. So.
Okay, I'm going to read a few poems. Bernie Sanders is on my daughter's flight to New York City. He's headed for Israel. He's on his way to the first presidential debate in Miami. He's wearing leggings and an oversized sweater. He has on a rumpled suit. They both have seats in economy. Sunshine makes a grid on the terminal carpet, igniting big plate glass windows that face the runway, which I face as I sit on one of those rocking chairs at the Burlington airport to answer her text. Yes, I saw him. Yes, he looks good. It is true. Bernie Sanders is on the same plane as my daughter. He has lost some weight. We remark upon his general well-being and ordinariness. He is just a man running for president, after all. In about 30 minutes, they will both be served drinks and little packages of sweet biscuits and peanuts. Later, each will roll their carry-ons to their next destinations, and the future will roll back toward them as well, towing its brute baggage of horror, the ramping up of respirator manufacture, and a run on surgical masks, in which somewhere in Italy, a nurse will look over a dozen beds and make a decision every hour. But all this has not yet happened. The plane fits so nicely in the blue sky, winks in the early sun, then soars with silvery grace, like the great blue heron we saw on Grand Isle on the drive to the airport. Sorry. The firmament parting for it, the gentle rise beyond the tree line, the plate glass trembles slightly, and I notice my hand is trembling too, and I feel the force of the future bearing down. Sometimes you can sixth sense that, and on this day it is leaden, full of the possibility of all things rushing forward with their slack maws and bulldozers, waiting for the living to become the dead. Full moon in Taurus, hanging behind thunder snow. Sometimes you have to reinvent your dreams. The good news, this can be done. Keep a little chip of God in your pocket. This could be a rock you found 47 years ago, your daughter's baby tooth, or the sand still listing in your pocket from that day at the beach, those tidal pools you found so emblematic. And they were. You just didn't understand yet how the water filling and unfilling the rocky scape would answer a question you had not yet asked. Imprint. These are the places we lay on the sand. You can still see us side by side, the little wrinkles in our clothing, the place your sneaker dug, making a trough. We have left behind the impressions of our feet, both coming and departing, each one a small boat floating on a sand sea, each one leaving somewhere and arriving somewhere else further out. There are so many other places we left our evidence. You could make a whole compendium of our snow angels, sleek runs and turns down mountains, the cross-hatched remains our snowshoes stamped on mountainsides, and the place, of course, where you are buried now, that mounded spot with its rough, sloping granite stone, and the place beside it, waiting for me. The world is printed with us, summer to spring. We have left ourselves everywhere. Our love litters the planet, even blows like the escaped plastic bags moving over avenues into deserts and northern forests, where they'll catch sometimes in the trees. And the last one I'm going to read is Brahms During Plague. And I dedicate this to Michael T. Young, my fellow Brahms admirer. I think music is very important right now. No matter where you are, no matter what you are doing, or what the weather report or the Surgeon General have to say, there is always a celebration of violins in D major happening somewhere. A sonorous conversation between strings and bassoons, a congregation of grace notes with delicate crescendos of cymbal and bass drum right there under the wingspan of every moment, every day. No matter what the date, even on the anniversaries of dead lovers and Hiroshima, tsunamis, and days your oldest relatives recall of far too much rain, there is always one muscular phrase climbing onto the back of another for a ride, day in, day out, during wars, holidays, on the birthday of your firstborn. Even on the day the last iceberg calves from what's left of Greenland, you can be assured that a single violin's voice will be rising with so much to say about how centuries can pass along hard beauty, even in difficult weather, one note at a time. Oh, and Cheryl Fish. Cheryl Fish is the author of Crater and Tower, poems reflecting on trauma and ecology after the Mount St. Helens volcanic eruption and the 9/11 attack. Her poems have appeared in Poets for the More Than Human World and in New American Writing, Terrain.org, and Hanging Loose. Fish has been a Fulbright professor in Finland, and she teaches at BMCC City University of New York.
Elizabeth, I think you were supposed to introduce me. You're supposed to introduce
Oh,
me.
to Lydia? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Lydia is going to introduce Cheryl.
So why
Lydia's next.
why doesn't Cheryl read now, since Elizabeth already introduces her, and then we'll go to Lydia. How's that? Is that okay?
That's okay, except I don't know who I'm introducing.
Well, you'll figure it out.
We'll shout at you.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I wanted to thank Dorothy and Bertha and mention that we need to be vigilant because women's rights violations are always ongoing, it seems. Tonight I'm going to start with a little bit of June Jordan's poem about my rights, and then I'm going to read a few poems from my two latest poetry books. Even tonight, I need to take a walk and clear my head about this poem about why I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my gender identity, my age, my status as a woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not being the point being that I can't do what I want to do with my own body because I am the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin. I could not go and I could not think and I could not stay there alone as I need to be alone because I can't do what I want with my own body. And who in the hell set things up like this? June Jordan, such a wonderful poet. I've written about her in the past. Anyway, I'm going to start with a poem from my new book, which is The Sauna is Full of Maids. It's based on my travels in Finland and specializes a lot in saunas. But this is, I want to read some poems about women artists. So artist residency at E. Along the E River, water's cold, but I swim anyway. Early September, rowboats waiting, shy. Sami artist Carol Legrand carved these words on a sign along the river. My name is Nature, please fuck me. Sana, sculptor of bronze, founder of this residency, lives next door. She shows me where to pick lingonberries, bilberries, tart and small, everywhere on low vines. In the center of E, pronounced E. The young man behind the counter at Orient Kebab Pizza tells us in perfect Finnish he's an Iraqi Kurd, one of only a few in a small Finnish town. His family was gassed during the war with Iran. E is said to be a modification of a Sami word for a place to stay overnight. I stay for a month in the Northland to make bridges with words. Air, girl, water, daughter, city dweller in the mushroom forest. Sana invites me to eat with them at the table in her yard. I have worked all alone for many years, she explained, serving salmon, potatoes, and salad. Her old friend B, whom she met when her husband abandoned her, is full of the drink. He calls me stupid in between his rapid sneezes. He assumes I voted for Trump, and I cannot convince him otherwise. Sana sculpts women in leaves, women with fish, graffiti women, women with feathers, women in treetops. Their faces shine. She offers rides to her friend, also named Sana, who doesn't own a car, but drives a taxi at night. Survival is our name. Don't fuck with us. Okay, so that's from my new book. And I'm just gonna read one more poem from my last book, Crater and Tower. And this one is called Fly and Rappel. It's an homage to Elizabeth Strab, the dancer who's the founder of Slam Lab for Action Mechanics. Maybe some of you know her work, Elizabeth Strab. Dancers held slack in jerked vests attached to cables on their backs. Diva Strab orchestrates from the sidelines as her black spandex team pulls ropes attached to pulleys. They heave like ancient builders, muscles, and magicianship. They yank and recoil so aerial fairies can fly. Open rehearsals in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Think of bridges, think of death. Everyone's welcome inside the hangar. Dance at 100 miles per hour. Strab knows real moves happen in unconventional space. Bodies agree to fly and fall, lifted and threatened, using cable and flight, building blocks of cinema. Synchronized eyes feel vertical drops. You get jerked and fall. Free. Artistic velocity. Gorgeous air vamps. Sweat contradictions across the ramps of time. Thank you, and I shall introduce, I'll introduce Lydia. Okay. Lydia Cortes is the author of the poetry collections Lust for Lust and Whose Place. She is working on a poetry book about the late poet and playwright Pedro Pietre. Lydia Cortes.
Thank you. I'm going to read 3 pieces. The first one is called Hard Balls. It's hard to keep all the balls in the air, all the doors open and closed at once, never mind a jar. How about a jar filled to the brim with agar, agar, or sugar, sugar, or vulgar, vulgar? Some in Bulgaria are aghast at the bullcrap, at the suggestion, any suggestion, gasping at the idea of it all, of air, grabbing for a breath or piece of bread or the breath of peace in the world. People will do what they must and have done for ages or against the common sense or common good or the commented on to alleviate the pain of psoriasis or sore losers, sawed at the waist, wasted at noon, none more than the lonely or loose-tongued or a lost woman feeling less than on her Wheaties ordered as an appetizer, a prey, or before breakfast with vodka, cocktails, or cocktails as tapas, as well as gin martinis or martyred Shirley templates. Then she suddenly saw the light, sought a better life, a longer lived liver. She thought that this was the purple prohibition or the purpose of abstinence. Still, Her heart was growing fonder of those airborne hard balls, now coming down to earth for forgiveness and good old-timey fun. Too many a man. Got too many pots on the fire, too many pans in my oven, too much water over the bridge in the sink, so many hoof prints on the bridal path, on the bride's path to the altar to alter her life. So well groomed is she, so as not to speak to the groom or the group at the reception or at the honey fest of the moon, where there would have been mooning by the light of the silvery or silver of moonlight that gave me you, but I gave you back to yourself, your mother and father, the former and the latter, formed a ladder to your creation and the development of an infirm mind. Who wants your body or soul, let alone the mindlessness, the mess that's a calling, the wilderness of your being less than kosher and more than Catholic, though guilt that's overzealous at any rate to any degree of faith in the order of the Jesuits, or merely je suis, as they, the French, say, in the land of the Swiss, which is not the den of Swede or switch and bade farewell. So a Valentine's Day is not in your cards, and neither is cardamom, only mom is. So you better get her a card for her day, or you'll never go home again. And forget you ever met me. That was someone else I never knew too. In the altogether, I have no problem with the macabre or macaroons masquerading as macaroni or chance of mixed precipitation or perspiration. It's more about perspicacity or peripheral orality I was thinking about, or rather twinkling with penetration happiness in the phase of the moon or the face of the moon, or my favorite place of the spheres or the jeers and the taunting of the best friend of the minute or next hour, or was it the latter that I lusted after, or was it the luster or the lackluster that drew me to him, or did he draw me in the altogether, although drawn and ordered is seemingly mean, common, inconceivable, or non-conceptual for the long haul or short hallway, making Halloween trickier than Old Souls Day, or a gray soul wrapped around shrimp by the shrine, shiny and bright as the past, or the passed by, or the passed on by, passers-by, by the cathedral of the capiters on hold for the holiday of hallucinations, halogens, and hallelujahs as last hurrahs. Thank you. Thank you, Bertha and Dorothy, for the opportunity and for having organized this great reading. And with that, I'll introduce, now I have to find the person. Hold on a minute, because it's changed now. Hold on. Christine Galineau is the author of 3 full-length books of poetry, most recently Crave and New NYQ books. Other books include the book-length sequence Appetite for the Divine, published as the editor's choice for the Robert McGovern Prize from Ashland Poetry Press, and Remorseless Loyalty, winner of the Richard Snyder Memorial Prize, also from Ashland Poetry Press.
Thank you. So happy autumnal equinox. I have 2 poems for you. The first is a Borderlands poem. Being at the equinox and having personally spent the whole of the summer season recovering from a serious accident that brought me to the brink, so precipitously to the brink that I required brain surgery. Yes, my asymmetrical haircut is not a style choice so much as it's what happens when a neurosurgeon collaborates with your hairdresser. Anyway, feeling thus that I've been dwelling in Borderland suggested to me that I share this poem tonight. This This is called Slieve League, Slieve being the Irish word for mountain. Slieve League is a sea cliff up in County Donegal, and it's twice as high as the better known cliffs of Moher. Cliffs draw us, as margins must. That limitless curiosity limits excite. It's exactly the 600 meters of granite verticality that insinuates closer, let me show you. Our thirst for clarity runs that deep. The glittering little lake at Bunglass Point observes unblinking as tourists and family groups head off along the ridge. There at Amhach Moor, the good view, a sketchy fence suggests, but well beyond, a girl sits leaned against a stone, turning the pages to her book, rehearsing nonchalance. This high up, the breathing of the sea is barely audible. Watchers cross and recross the glass distance to the waves, imagining the release, almost welcome in the manageable summer air. Daydreams, less than vapor, assume instead the composure of the heather. After the cliff walkers return to their domestic suppers, after the noisome cars reload and wend back, sunset stains the stones mortaled red and shadowed ambergris. In the mobile dark of borderland, the sea repeats without complaint the siren song of its remorseless loyalty. So that poem is included in my first collection, Remorseless Loyalty, and I'm going to read one more poem for you. And this is something brand new, so just kind of trying it out on you. It's called Monarch. Determined to pull past the summer's constellation of injuries, I make a daily ritual of my mile walk before breakfast, before the sun has burnt away the morning mists, and thus I see the milkweed we'd left unmown in the pastures by design or accident have become the monarch nurseries we'd intended, production site for the urge and urgency of renewal and continuance. As I walk, I bless the monarch's inability to think. The way it struggled to free the chrysalis is unobstructed by fretting over how far away Mexico is. The monarch dries its wings and rests for what comes next without anxiety, while we know too much too much. Centering on my breath in hopes of releasing stress from my neck and shoulders, my mind drifts to thoughts of the 7 we know fighting cancer, 2 our age, 3 our children's generation, and 2 between. So many dark stories, final chapters to dread. Their struggle waits my own fight to get well. Is anything I would recognize as normal still an option in one's 70s? The copper and black-winged monarchs have no ideas at all, only instinct, which lifts them, airborne and incandescent, alight with the purpose they have been born to, the purpose we have all been born to, which I might well realize. Sorry about that, which I might well realize if I can crack out of that chrysalis of foreboding I have wound about myself, uncover instead the urge I too surely harbor, the loft, buoyant on this moment's breeze, sunlight on my wings. And I'd like to introduce Mindy. Mindy Levokove is a multimedia performance poet who sings for peace and dances for water. Mount Eden Avenue is her recent poetry collection, published by Alien Buddha Press. This summer, she danced at Coney Island with Nancy Zendora and Anna Boroyu and friends for Global Water Dances 2021. Mindy?
Thank you, everyone. Incredible reading. It's a big honor to be part of this group. I appreciate hearing everybody, and I thank everybody who's hosting, and thank you for sharing your materials. Easier behind sight, earth life blister, awesome prize. The bells tell unholy lovely, the bells tell unholy lovely. But what could a closer be than this it is? Oh, so fully and more unholy lovely, unholy lovely, unholy lovely roar. For this it's I'm going to read some poems from my book, Mount Eden Avenue. They're short, so Mount Eden Avenue, Part 1. Mount Eden Avenue is over the top, where she is forgetting the breakfast of champions. Deserted in the sky to become a can of worms. Here's the fish tank when she meant to go to the beach. She is frozen. She is also forgetting the drum roll. To slew the blues. Hold the splenetic, doom frenetic, home of downtown of our hour. Neat, sleek streets of beat and heat, cheap business visions mate to match. Hot pop-up splatter, bloom and catch. Violent spring, red, redolent things, and those take off the gloves, bub. Rock your rolls, boobs and buds, bloods and broods, snare some snoods. Quell or cruise, lose the fools, stall frauds and feuds, fill and fuel, cross the fjord, and choose to slew the blues, slew the blues, slew the blues. Already there, and oh, the Mexican chanteur. You have fallen to the right, head to collarbone, vest and sock slippers, every can sneakers, sleeping gray hair, tight, soft bags of light. God, and oh, the Mexican chanteur. You stretch one arm, look, leg right, think of a planet, it's already there. Cries for joy, oh, the song of the Mexican chanteur. Subway rolls, slide feet, foam, see people, God looking at a wall. I have my watch on, I see it's time to go. The earth was beaming, the rest was bullshit. Sound of the universe, laughter in a sleeve, gone tomorrow. Pieces of heart, fly shipward, time to depart. Don't leave without me, you're taking me apart. No hope, no fear, just a minute, a second. I have my watch on. I see it's time to go. And this is Mount Eden Avenue, Part 2. If everything I know and everything you know can be stored in boxes marked with meaning, there, all arranged on a platform, neatly placed like plates on a table. Hearts open. It's already waiting, already there. And my last one, we sound. We link with so many lines in life, in memory, in matter, in times. We bathe in surroundings, light and breath, ground and energies higher and higher, depths, extremities, all universes bound. We hold, we tell, we yell, we shout, we sound. And next, I'd like to introduce the 6th Queen's Poet Laureate. Maria Lisella was awarded a Poet Laureate Fellowship from the American Academy of Poets. She co-curates the Italian American Writers Association. She's the author of the collection Thieves in the Family and 2 chapbooks, Amor on Hope Street and 2 Naked Feet. Her latest chapbook, The Man with a Plan, is pending publication. She is New York culture editor for the Jerusalem Post. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Mindy. And as I mentioned to you, I go back to Mount Eden often, especially at night.
Thank you.
So thank you. And I wanted to thank all the women who are here, whose voices I can finally hear and connect them to the wonderful words I've been reading. My first piece is a short new piece. Traces. A tunnel, a wall, a pipeline, a child, a road. The nouns are rockets, arsenal, dogs, interceptors, uniforms, surveillance, mosque, raids, blockade, cages, fence, barrier. Ramadan, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Standing Rock. The verbs are build, fire, hide, run, seek, carry, attack, imprison, scour, trap, seize, take, shoot, encounter, collaborate, help, divide, construct, bridge, expand, stop, die, pollute, live. A tunnel, a wall, a pipeline, a child, a road. This piece was written as a little bit of an exercise in a workshop that I was running. Okay, after Gwendolyn Brooks' We Cool. 79,000 of us marched arm in arm. We suspended our breaths until we could see the real crowd behind us and in front of us, staying cool, sharp and quiet, standing almost still. We didn't dare shift our bodies or sway or sing left-wing songs because this was a new time, life as school. Experience brought us here to a place we could not have imagined as children. The lurk of banners, signs, political placards, and slogans of late. What we shared was one thing, one reason, one voice. We stepped up, walked shoulder to shoulder, a day to strike. Never mind if we are queer or trans or straight. What we know now and could not know then was that we have voices so loud that reach so far, especially when we sing. The phalanx of brothers in blue hang their heads with sin of shame and prejudice. Maybe they too think real hard as we look like their mothers, sisters, wives, girlfriends, some soft and thin, others large and long and loud, with fire in their eyes, food in their bellies, gin on their breaths. But they come with us too, because we gotta be blind to our differences, hold our breaths, dream of jazz, so sweet, so sure of melodies we heard on nights in June, far from crowds, settled into a corner of our own where we have to face our public and private lives, where dreams die and children are born in time to take up our chance real soon. Thank you. This is a fairly new piece too, and I think it's gonna be in Red Wheelbarrow. It happened just like this for you, didn't it? You could not have been happier, not a dancer, but did a jig in our courtyard to the sweet streams of doo-wop. The innocent harmony of the Deltones, and in 40 days, you'd be staring at a ceiling in an emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital. This could be just like that. Seeing double is worse than seeing single. It could be a precursor to a stroke. It could be anything, an interruption in service of a perfectly working eye that gives up, that takes a powder when you least expect it, that roars out of the station into a crash against a wall, a motor car, a vision that decomposes, disintegrates, breaks down into pixels. But this was not that. This was seeing two, double vision, one eye, just as life was opening its third eye, letting me see what I could do in this life without you. The fallow air around your grave that I never visit. Imagine the whole thing a big mistake. As long as there is no marker, no one can find you because you are not really there anymore. I dressed you in the wrong jacket, not your favorite shirt, but one a high school friend envied. Why still after all this time do I remember of all things I sent you away in an ill-fitting but new jacket? I knew I'd never give it away. I'd never wear it. I tossed it into the coffin with your grandmother's rosary beads, your holy card to Vito Marcantonio. God only knows what else I placed in the coffin, knowing even as I neared that powdery skinned man in that box, you had already left. That pain was gone. And I have one more short piece. Magnolias. I still know how to enjoy magnolias. You remember how they burst into the courtyard in spring, would toss their full blooms as if they'd live forever, make the air drunk with their too sweet honey scent that rises like fluffy dander, and the magenta hearts beckon before they descend into disarray. Their ivory palms still age too soon, edged in copper, while their never-stop scents leap across the garden, tease my nostrils as I cannot help but inhale, deeply frantic, for the one scent I can no longer find. Sacred, known only to me, but for now, tethered as I am to this moment, the magnolias willfully seduce, dare me to forget their velvety flesh before they're crushed underfoot. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Sharon Mesmer. She's a poet, fiction writer, and essayist. She's the author most recently of the poetry collection, Greetings from My Girly Leisure Place, Bluth Books. Voted Best of 2015 by Entropy Magazine. Her essays have appeared in the New York Times, New York Magazine, The Cut, the Paris Review, American Poetry Review, and Commonweal, among others. She teaches creative writing at NYU and the New School and lives in Brooklyn and Pennsylvania. Welcome to Sharon.
Thank you, Maria. That was a gorgeous, beautiful reading. I'm so glad I got to hear you. And I also want to thank Dorothy and Bertha for putting this together. I'm going to read one poem, and it is from a project that I'm almost finished with. It's a poetry collection dedicated to underknown women poets of the Americas from the 19th century to now, from Canada to Chile. And the poem I'm going to read is actually about a friend of mine who died in 2007. We both lived in Chicago and we went to college together. Her name was Lydia Tomque. And this is called I Promise Not to Behave. After Lydia Tomque, 1959 to 2007. You slip your purple glitter turban on, spread the tarot cards on the table and whisper, I see a fever has crawled into you. I roll my eyes. Scarlet or yellow? You squint through the velvety knots of your lashes, too early to tell. We're in your parents' kitchen on Oakley. It's a Friday night, and like every Friday night, the boy with the fork is tormenting the girl with the limp in the alley behind the house. Okay, we're not in your parents' kitchen. I'm just wishing we were. You've been dead 13 years. The last time I saw you alive was at the Astor Place Kmart, wearing that purple glitter turban and eating a hot dog. Next thing I knew, your hazy specter, oddly shiny in the thin winter air, was stinking up my living room, poking holes in the pink Brooklyn neon I called my own. At first, I didn't recognize it was you. 2 days later, I got the call. So I said a novena to Most Holy Lou, patron saint of ugly kids and dogs who chase cars, arranged my collection of salt shakers into a lagoon of mad lovers, and conjured you up properly from memory and made you speak. Made you hold up a card called Delvaux's Dream Girl, a nude sleepwalker glowing like a glass of milk, and chant in your raspy red rum voice. Soon a skinny black tie will be tossed romantically across a room, and suddenly you'll run out of arms to wrap around all the young boys and all the old boys kneeling before you as you sit in a beach chair outside a cabana, sulking. But that's not what you would do. That's not what you did. You took the side of my vile bridegroom who punched me in the stomach on New Year's Eve, 1982, because a stranger had grabbed me on the subway. You started a rumor that I had a screw loose after I slit my wrist, after a vile bridegroom dumped me. Then you dumped me for 10 years, then expected me to be your friend again after your bridegroom dumped you. While eating meatloaf in rehab, you wrote me a letter. You said, we could be chainsaws under the stars. Under what stars, I wondered. I never wanted to consider our interchangeable fingerprints again. But soon there we were, just like before, sitting cross-legged on a curb, fashioning mental movies of the story of our lives, our afterglow having grown cold long ago. I missed falling asleep in your bathtub as the sun came up. I missed the quaint sway and swagger of being the first in our families to graduate grammar school. I missed our downpour, our clairvoyance, our simmering into midnight on a summer rooftop after our liquid pink lips released the dream called laundry from lockjaw. I missed believing the things we did would someday be interesting to anyone. You didn't go clean convenient, your lungs collapsing in unison, leaving no mess like you said you would. You left a mess heavier than the weight of all the waves that kick themselves to death twice a day along all the world's seashores. A mess as tedious as your poem about me, where I scrawl, Warsaw was raw in red lipstick on an old lover's letter, hold it up to a mirror and delight in myself. A mess as ridiculous as our nicknames for the days of the week, snowsuit, thug, aspirin, as calling each other on the phone during sex with our boyfriends, and pretending the dull Midwest rum-dums walking past the snack shop window where we sat drinking Royal Crown Cola and playing Spot the Celebrities were celebrities. Ludicrous. As ludicrous as you being dead. Remember splattering the classroom walls with day-glow paintings of fish, finding x-rays in the frozen dairy case, asking Allen Ginsberg if we could kidnap him to get ourselves on the cover of Time magazine, and Allen saying yes? Too bad we didn't have a plan. How about hailing a cab at 4 a.m. in the middle of empty Michigan Avenue on Christmas just because it felt glamorous? As if we already lived in New York, as if we were already famous, and not two working class Slavic girls dressed in black, eyes lined in black, beneath a sky as vast as we believed our futures to be, not wearing burnt furs plucked from a dumpster and way too much perfume. Does anyone still burn with a bright jewel-like flame? Does anyone still let all things happen, beauty and terror alike unto them? Is every great love still in some measure a terrible mistake? I hope so. Because even death's embrace is still blood, still breath. Like when against the black cosmic backdrop, one winged brilliance arrives and mercifully blunts its own sharp shaft so as not to burn or blind us too much, but just enough. Can we please pretend that the suburbs are prairies again, that each time we blink a million sounds escape our eyes, that the moon has no odor, that we never ever looked at each other across a dank hall and knew it would come to this? Can't it be October 1979 and we're under the L on Wabash, trading Edith Piaf albums for beer money, and your finger is on the trigger of a pistol that pops every time I shout magnet and prune? No, it can't. No matter how hard I pray, it can't be anything other than today, and you've been dead 13 years, and I'm gray-faced and achy and standing in front of your old apartment on 3rd Street next to the Hells Angels clubhouse, crying because being alive when you were alive and we were new was so easy.
Wow.
And I'm going to introduce the illustrious And even though I asked for the pronunciation, I'm going to mess it up. Karen Neuberg. Is that good, Karen? Okay. Karen Neuberg is the author of the full-length poetry collection Pursuit, Kelsey Press, and the chapbook The Elephants Are Asking from Glass Lyre. She holds an MFA from the New School and is associate editor of the online poetry journal First Literary Review East. She lives in Brooklyn and she's fabulous. Karen Neuberg.
Thank you, Sharon. And that was fabulous what you read. And everyone, this is a wonderful reading. Thank you, Dorothy and Bertha, for bringing us all together. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first one is Moxie. After achieving sex icon status as the girl in the 7-year itch, Marilyn Monroe set out on a 2-year quest. Frustrated with studio constraints, tired and depressed by grade B scripts and bimbo blonde roles, Marilyn defied report to work orders, donned a black wig and dark glasses, and under the pseudonym of Zelda Zane, flew to New York. Then she did something no other woman star except Mary Pickford had done. With a friend's financial backing, she started her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Studio, an action now called instrumental in the collapse of the restrictive studio system. Ignoring threats, insults, and lawsuits, Marilyn spent the next few years attending Broadway plays, visiting museums, going to poetry readings, joining the Actors Studio, and reading extensively, seeking strong women characters to play. Arthur Miller courted her, director Josh Logan wanted her for Bus Stop, and her studio surrendered. Marilyn got all her demands, including creative control. The victory was proclaimed one of the greatest single triumphs ever won by an actress. And the next poem, the title is also the first lines of the poem, and the title comes from some lines by Edward Hirsch and Pope Gregory I. I wasn't going to lay down on my side and face away from fetid smoke coming out of the liar's mouth. But here in the park, amid vendors selling resist buttons, all was a mellow, tranquil. Graduates in purple gowns, everyone enjoying the first sunny day in a week. A shirtless young man displaying a pleasant torso. I swear I got it. The simple pleasure of doing nothing, the benefit of sitting back and relaxing, even while hoping it's not going to be too late to do something after. And the final poem kind of reaches into some of my feelings about nature. It's called Let Me Sing the Garden. Let me sing green and stroll the garden, collect the yellows and purples, bathe in the luxury of butterfly and bee. Let the hummingbirds hum the afternoon light, let the fireflies light the blue hour. Let me sing the garden. Let me be a tree. Let me reach into the song of the seasons. Let the seasons keep their pace, steady in promise. Let the promise be a garden. I'm lost in a dream with no garden. I'm lost in a world where green is lost, where creatures are lost, some who we never met or named. Let me sing the garden, sing the birds, sing the flowers. Let me sit in the crotch of a tree. Let me be a nest. And now it's my great honor to introduce Bertha Rogers. Bertha Rogers' poems have been published in literary journals and anthologies, as well as in individual collections, among them Heart Turned Back, Salmon Poetry, Arlen 2011, and Wild Again, Salmon Poetry 2019. Her translation of Beowulf was published in 2000, and her translation of the 95 riddle poems from the Anglo-Saxon Exeter book was published in 2019.
Thank you, Karen. I want to thank everybody who's participating in this reading. These voices are so wonderful, and it's such a tribute to all these women who've done so much and who've been such great poets throughout history. I'm going to read two poems, and the first one is called Girl Accused. It's a pantoum, and it's based on a murder that took place in upstate New York. And if her heart were truly evil, eyes lizard cold, the view through the window, the boy's mouth speaking, eyes lizard cold, grin on her friend's implicated arms, the boy's mouth speaking, only this he taunts, grim on her friend's implicated arms. No regrets, and he laughs at her, only this he taunts, white teeth bared. No regrets, and he laughs at her. Loving singly, white teeth bared, the girl kneels beyond the knoll, loving singly, brown and red leaves royal, the girl kneels behind the knoll, October creaks, brown and red leaves royal. She clutches the stolen kitchen knife, October creaks, her book's words bristling, instructing. She clutches the stolen kitchen knife as he ambles by, her book's words bristling, instructing, good looking, young as love, as he ambles by. She, God, how she hates. Good looking, young as love. She tries to leave. She, God, how she hates believing her life and his. She tries to leave. She rises. She agonizes, believing her life and his. Retreat. She rises. She agonizes. Still that honed knife, her fingers retreat. She can't break the circled hour. Still that honed knife, her fingers, she yields to massacre. She can't break the circled hour, orange, yellow, red. She yields to massacre and loses, she, her soul, this one, orange, yellow, red. Who could have been an angel? And loses, she, her soul, this one, they all told her. Who could have been an angel? The wind buffeting, they all told her, her mother's knife gleaming, the wind buffeting. She mingled winged leaves, her mother's knife gleaming. Why do his eyes subside like that? The mingled winged leaves, shy again, she wipes him off. Why do his eyes subside like that? She repeals the event, flee, shy again. She wipes him off, but her hot hands conspire against her. She repeals the event, flee. Winter, her longest season, but her hot hands conspire against her. And if her heart were truly evil, winter, her longest season, the view through the window. And the other one I'm going to read is a poem about Emily Dickinson. And usually there's nothing funny about Emily Dickinson, but I was moved to write the sestina called Emily Sending Out. Cameo girl, her strictest critic comments, you're as ambitious as any learned man. I'll give you that. And I like some of your expressions, though they don't, for heaven's sake, compare to Walt's. Honey, what's the point of calling the sunrise a ribbon? Find truth in planted flowers, not yet narrow fellows in the grass, crushing flowers. The things you notice, depend on it. My comments are meant kindly. Call the everyday sunrise what it is, a lacy wake up, and forget about writing like a man. Oh, and take out the dashes. Walt's poems stand without ceremony. Your expressions are far too awkward, strangely brief. Try expressions in complex sentences. Try a garden of flowers instead of buzzing black flies. By the way, Walt's got a fashion sense too. That hat, you'll get comments, I guarantee it. If you pad your bosom, walk less like a man, stay away from your sister-in-law, the grazing sunrise. Have you considered sunglasses? The sunrise must irritate, and your odd-eyed squint, almost manly expressions don't help. Give mystery a shot, Emily. A man likes enigmas, aloof yet approachable flowers. We can't this way tour you. There would be comments. The last time we published a book of Walt's, for instance, he made it a hit. They applauded Walt's American way, not knowing he was fey. The sunrise was lost to him. He partied and played to favorable comments all night long. I'd fancy marketing you, but your expressions mostly leave me cold, like a field of farmed flowers lost to frost. But my dear, I'm just a man. The poet crumples the letter written by the man whose assessment she thought was imperative, and Walt's too. What does a critic know of shrouded flowers? She turns to Will and Sappho and Dante. The sunrise, fine weather of weeping, dying tale, like expressions. I've got, Emily finally cries, all the comments I need. The answer is in the sunrise. Baffling flowers, a blizzard of words and expressions. Who wants Walt's comments? Tell Edna, tell Marianne and Elizabeth, I'm my own woman. Thank you. And the next person to read is Sarai, who is the author of the collections That Strapless Bra in Heaven, Geographies of Soul and Taffeta, and The Future is Happy, with individual poems and Threepenny Review, Barrow Street, the Southampton Review, and many other journals. An independent editor and former lecturer, she holds an MFA from Sarah Lawrence College. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Bertha. And wow, I guess just like everyone else, I thank you so much, and I thank Dorothy so much. I didn't expect to be so moved by everyone. Foolish me. Shock white. After my mother died from Jesus, I left my hair color alone. If it's just fucking you want, or all you can handle, a decent cut will do. We laughed, me and her, when she stopped coloring her hair. It was the same faded blonde she'd been covering. Once I quit, my hair prospered, gray and white, and where you rubbed my nape, auburn, like my locks when California sun baked them red. When I was waiting to be something or someone, when I still didn't realize the woman who was my mother read only that bit of her job description on good shoes and teaching 4 daughters how to assemble do-it-yourself installations of shame. In the year of COVID fear, all the hairs on my head turned shock white, all white, only white. When Mom was killing herself in the name of Jesus, my next oldest sister jumped shock white, a situation for sure. Sis did that over and over pleading thing, stop, stop, stop. No changing Mom is what I knew. One time I floated my theory on the limitations of Jesus, who I like outside of church. Mom kept dying. Volition and a misreading of human possibility led to her many-yeared death. California wildfires are set by hikers and arsonists. Like them, my grief is ignited by the careless and the evil. I wish I could remember why, but this poem is named 2, and it's the Arabic. And I just feel that this and the final, they're all women related. 2, that's when you discover beauty is not enough, because a land claim stipulates possession and its percentages, because blowing 1/10 of the commandments is common law, because it never favors the lover possessed, because the devolvement of beauty's insufficiencies becomes mere poetry, and everything winnows to that strait between mythological thighs, because making pleasurable is a taunt, because beauty is the least of it, because what is? It's so nice to see her. Really, you're my favorite audience. Okay, some of you have heard this, and I decided when Mindy was reading, I'm going to try and do a little chirping, singing as I do this, and you know, who knows? No one's in high school these days. We graduate with constrictive badges. Weirdo girl, prom girl, high IQ girl, neutral girl in the bleachers, one row behind, puffy coat wearing skinny page girl, next to goofy boy, jabbing her car coat's loft. Pow, pow, right finger. Pow, pow, left index finger. Lipping, you look fat in this coat. Pow. And neutral girl thinking, shut up. And skinny page girl thinking, she'll skip the coat next week. Nerdy girl, abused girl, abused girl, abused girl. Pot dealing girl, acid dropping girl, girl who in 70 years will be not so bitter girl. Immovable past girl, future girl. Oh, now here's the trick to find the sucker. Oh, good. It is my pleasure to very much to introduce Susan Sherman. Susan Sherman is a poet, playwright, essayist, founding editor of Icon magazine. Her publications include 7 collections of poetry, The Light That Puts an End to Dreams, publishing Audre Lorde Award for Lesbian Poetry finalist. Sorry, I'm messing this up, but they get the idea. You're hot, baby. Nirvana on 9th Street, short fiction, and a memoir, America's Child, a woman's journey through the radical 60s. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, good. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first poem has a funny origin story. I was contacted on the phone by this guy who turned out to be legitimate from 1-800-Flowers. And he said, we're looking for a poet. We like you. We're looking for a poem and we're going to offer $500 if you can write a poem about flowers for LGBT Pride Day. And I said, flowers? Well, okay. Glad to. I thought of this great story, essay by Lauren Isley about flowers, how flowers are responsible for humanity happening. So I sent them the first verse. Well, you can imagine. 2 days later got a phone call back. Well, we've actually decided maybe we want a poetic voice and not an actual poem. So I said, fine. So I went ahead and I wrote the poem anyway. So this poem was written in honor of LGBTQIA+ Pride 2021. It's called Spring, with kudos to Lauren Isley. As millions of years ago, flowers transformed the earth, so today do we, our blossoms of differing hues, patterns, alive in flesh and dream. Before flowers came, the earth was dust and rock. Reptiles trod slowly on a land where giants roamed, until one day the wind, relentless, without mercy, carried a first seed in its fist, and then another and another, until our world was populated with richer hues, flowers, and insects, a place where humans could survive. Our struggle has been like that, generations carried by wind pushing against dirt and stone, flowers germinating inside us, waiting for us to bring them into light. And because the theme was women's herstory, I reached back into herstory for this poem. As far as I know, it's the first Lilith poem that was written. It was the used as the back cover on the Rat newspaper, which is when Women's took over Liberation newspaper in the 60s. A friend of mine, a guy, Alan Katzman, told me the story of Lilith, actually, and how in Jewish mythology in Poland, the women used to write things on the wall to keep Lilith from stealing their children. So I said, no, that's not right. This is called Lilith of the Wildwood of the Fair Places. And Lilith left Adam and went to seek her own place, and the gates were closed behind her, and her name was stricken from the book of life. And how does one begin again? Each time, each poem, each line, word, syllable, each motion of the arms, the legs, a new beginning. Women surround me, images of women, their faces, I who for years pretended away their names, their faces, myself, what I am, pretended it away. As a name exists to confine, to define, confine, define. Woman, the name, the word, the definition, the meaning beyond the word, the prism, prison beyond the word, to pretend it away. It's the things we feel most we never say, for fear perhaps that by saying them, the things we care most for will vanish. Love is most like that, is the unsaid thing behind the things we do when we care most. To be an outlaw, an outcast, to stand apart from the law, the words of the law, outlaw, outcast, cast out by her own will, refusing anything but her own place, a place apart from any other, her own. I do not have to read her legend in the ancient books. I do not have to read their lies. She is here inside me. I reach to touch her, my body, my breath, my life. To fear you is to fear myself. To hate you is to hate myself. To desire you is to desire myself. To love you is to love myself. Lilith of the wildwood, Lilith of the fair places, who eats her own children, who is cursed of God, mother of us all. And the last poem is a love poem, which I've read before, but a lot of you haven't heard my poems. This was written about a woman from many years ago, who I still dream about, I must say. There was a woman once who was more to me than words, any blending of alphabet and sound. We met at the corners of day, in the space where night crosses light, where shadows fold into darkness. The moments between our meetings were air. 30 years lie between her and this poem, a length of time impossible to render. There was a woman once who was more to me than imagination, wonder, the chimeras that embraced the night, more than the chill kiss of wind that tortured her secret into patterns of light and breeze. A woman who was more to me than forever, the bending of syllable and time. We met on a hilltop in Vermont, made love in the sweet grass of our desire. These are moments that defy forgetting. These are moments time cannot cure with detail, noise, distraction, mornings that bound us sticky and tight with dew. There was a woman once who was more to me than flesh. We touched to open and then once again to close, the way a negative is held over weary eyes to keep the sun from blinding in the madness of its fire. What lay between us was that strong. What joined us was that fierce, lying in each other's arms. Married, she had never meant for us to happen, had seen me as diversion, a momentary lapse. Now she called me treasure, promised to keep me always cherished, hidden in her private place. But forever is the length of time, like any other. One afternoon, precisely at the strike of 1, she lapsed into a silence without boundary. The air lay like a tomb around us. She could not look at me, touch me, say my name. She had never meant it to go so far. It had become too much for her to bear. This woman who meant more to me than words. Should I be grateful? Thank whatever gods or goddesses gifted me this passion, this legacy I cannot relinquish, cast aside. Forever is a length of time without forgiveness. After 30 years, I search for her still, for that moment between opening and distance when I held her close, not yet knowing enough to turn away. Okay. Did I thank Bertha and Dorothy? If I didn't, thank you so much, Bertha and Dorothy, for this really wonderful reading. And the next poet, and the last shall be first, is Hilary Sideris. She's had poems in recent issues of Great Weather for Media, Mom Egg Review, and the Westchester Review. Her most recent book, Animals in English, Poems After Temple Grandin, was published by Dos Madres Press in 2020. Hilary. Unmute so we can hear you. Hilary, yeah, good.
Thank you, Susan. That was a beautiful reading. Thank you, Bertha and Dorothy, for putting this together and inviting me to this group. And, you know, next year in person. And thanks to everybody who stayed till the end. I'm just going to read 2 poems. Liberty Laundry. She hauls my bag onto a scale, speaks Yoruba on her cell. My English interrupts, tells her to write, no fabric softener. Yesterday we set the clocks in our too small apartment back. It's dark in 5 p.m. Flatbush. My English says I'm in a rush to swipe my card, take an Uber. Between washers and dryers, her children fall down, laugh. I drop our whites and colors off. The warrant. I understand each question in nail salon English, like this color, hot stone, hard enough, slow motion flush. Try to stay calm, remain polite. Ask them to slip the warrant under your door. The immigrant defense booklet I'm reading says, ICE comes at dawn, hoping to find their target home in bed. The owner's pug dozes under the words, no pet. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you all for your fine and moving words and tribute to yourselves, others, and women in particular. Look forward to seeing your words on the internet in our group. And thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your words.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And a special thanks to Hilary and Cheryl. And you know why.
Just wanted to make sure that we're now not being recorded, or